Inevitably, when we experience terrorism, the first emotion any normal human being would have is, I want to kill those MFs. I'm so angry. And I think what a religious tradition is supposed to do, and I think what Jewish wisdom offers, is to understand the full range of responses that are necessary for terrorism. You see, we tend to divide up the responses. And so we get one group of people they go out and fight the terrorism with all viciousness, and any laws can be broken. It doesn't matter because they're evil. We got to kill, 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 kill. And it's the revenge security model. By the way, it's partially true. It turns out that only one group, for the most part, generally speaking, traditional hawks, right wing, they get saddled with having to own that whole response. Another response is within Jewish wisdom, would be to say, what is the cause of this? You know, there's a fascinating understanding of the greatest enemy in the biblical tradition. The greatest enemy is the nation of Amalek. Amalek it becomes the metaphor for evil. If we had to use a Hebrew metaphor or Jewish wisdom metaphor for terrorism today, we'd say terrorists are from the seed of Amalek. What did Amalek do? And it'll sound so familiar regarding terrorism. Amalek attacked the weakest element of the Israelites as they left Egypt. They attacked the women and the elderly and the children who were in the back of the 600,000 horde that the Torah, the Old Testament claims went out of Israel. They attacked the weakest element. And it was to be one thing if they attacked the front end, fearing that this horde who had managed to leave Egypt and plagues had happened, so maybe they were afraid of them. It'd be one thing if they attacked the military wing of the Israelites, if they attacked the 20-year-old men who were the fighters. But they specifically attacked the men, old men, women, and children. They were kind of like what we mean by terrorists. But what's interesting is that the Torah, Jewish wisdom, suggests two different responses to Amalek. One response to Amalek is you must wipe them out so that literally you wipe out the memory of Amalek. Now, that reflects, I think, what every single human being feels when that pizza place gets blown up. Why don't we just nuke them all? Why don't we just get rid of them all? And that is a absolutely valid and authentic response. But it has to be nuanced by another side. And many people don't know this about Amalek. But who is Amalek? Who is Amalek related to? Well, it turns out in one little passage in the book of Genesis, it says that Amalek is related to Esav. In other words, Esav had a concubine wife. Esav's concubine wife had a child. The child was Amalek, which means that Jacob, that's us folks, Jacob, Israel, Jacob and Amalek are directly family. But you begin to ask, how did someone in my own family, just 2 generations ahead of me, my brother's grandson, how did my brother's grandson become so evil that he killed all the old men, women, and children in my own family? How did that happen? It didn't start out that way. What's the causes? What are the causes of this? Now, it turns out that we have to have both responses. We need the response of a genuine military response appropriately to the perpetrators of terrorism. And we need just a significant response, spending just as much energy and sacrifice and money and time trying to understand, how did a member in my own family become so distorted that they're killing the weakest elements of my family? How did that happen? Jewish wisdom says, tie those two responses to terrorism, responses to evil together, and you will have a shot at beginning to diminish and mitigate the evil. Unfortunately, in our society today, we got one side who says it's all causes, it's all a social construction, terrorism. There's no evil. It's just cause effect, cause effect. It's a partial truth. There also is evil. You both have to wipe out Amalek, and always be understanding the causes and effects of such distortion. Because if you don't, then this is something I learned from Tommy Franks. I had the opportunity of hearing Tommy Franks speak 3 years ago. But someone raised their hand and asked, and says, and General Franks, now this is not some mamby-pamby liberal guy. This was the head of the armed forces of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So this guy, pretty serious, and you would not want to be in battle with him, right? Not some liberal pacifist. He said, can we win the war against terrorism? And he looked the guy right in the face, and he said, you know, we can kill every terrorist, but we can't kill terrorism. Terrorists we have to kill. Terrorism, we have to try to understand why a member of our own family somehow has become so distorted that they want to kill the weakest elements of the very family they're from. I mean, think about how crazy it is that the same Torah would have wipe out Amalek and then tell you it's Esav's grandson.
I know, it's amazing.
It's Esav's grandson? That means my great Yaakov was his great uncle. I mean, Yaakov was Amalek's great uncle. That's crazy. That's crazy to think that. If you don't understand how radical the Torah is, and I'm not saying to understand the Torah literally, understand it from a story, because it forces your imagination to be jarred. It gets you out of the easy conventional ways of thinking. That's what Jewish wisdom and that's what Torah does. So imagine to think of Amalek as Yaakov's great nephew, whatever. To think of Jacob as the great uncle of Amalek would be like saying like this, that Osama bin Laden is my great uncle. You know, or that I'm Osama bin Laden's great uncle. That's weird. That's stretching our imagination regarding how we really are one family on this planet. And then the same Torah says, now, that is true. It doesn't mean you don't have to wipe out Amalek, because they'll wipe you out. What it means is you better understand Amaleks will keep arising if you don't deal with the truth of who Amalek is. So if you only allow one impulse to win out, wipe them out, wipe them out, wipe them out, wipe them out, you'll be on a treadmill of creating Amaleks that you have to wipe out, creating Amaleks that you have to wipe out, creating Amaleks that you have to wipe out. Wiping out is a temporary measure to allow you to deal with, how did this happen? There actually is nothing more pragmatic in dealing with terrorism than to hold these two things together, right? The problem is, one side, the side that says just wipe them out, generally feels that no one on the other side wants peace and lumps everybody together, and therefore says, evil, they're evil, we're good, let's wipe them out. That is a partial truth. And it turns out on the other side, because they do have an insight that things are cause, effect, they never imagine that sometimes the cause, effect becomes so thick that you're not going to be able to unravel that cause, effect before the other side kills you. And they tend not to be able to understand, yes, we have to unravel the cause effect, but mostly to avoid a next generation of being perpetrators. Mostly to avoid there being more perpetrators. Not because you're going to actually change the present day perpetrators. So what has to happen is both sides have to nuance their thinking more. The right has to nuance its thinking by saying, who really am I going to kill? Is it really, let's say in the Israeli-Palestinian issue, is it really all Palestinians who don't want peace? Now, if it's not all, well, let's say, is it 90-10, 80-20, 70-30, 60-40? Is it really only 15% of Palestinians who have a disproportionate amount of power, who control the Palestinian rhetoric, who don't want peace? The more the right can nuance who it genuinely, legitimately needs to kill, the more effective the right-wing position is. And it turns out the left-wing position also has to nuance. It imagines that everybody, from the little kid who's throwing a rock to the head of Hamas, are all the exact same. And all we have to do is talk nicely to them and kind of understand them a little bit better. How has their narrative helped construct who they are? How has the occupation somehow, right, transformed every single Palestinian into a terrorist? No, that's not helpful either. What the left has to do is to nuance and say, yes, there are cause effects. There are cause effects. There are. It is true if you have 400 checkpoints, right, that probably are necessary. It's true if you occupy people's land. It's true. But not everybody whose land gets occupied becomes a terrorist who blows up pizza places. It's a curious thing. So there's a difference between the causes and effects that have to be addressed to keep more people from becoming perpetrators than imagining that if we just discovered the magical cause and effect, every perpetrator would suddenly be singing Kumbaya.